Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. My name is Cameron May. It's 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on a Monday afternoon. That means it's time to get back to our ongoing weekly series of discussions called Getting Started with Thinkorswim. And sometimes an investor or a trader just wants to keep a close eye on stocks that they own or on stocks that they might be interested in owning. And today we're going to be using a tool on Thinkorswim that might assist in that effort. Today is lesson 6 in our series, and we're focusing on the MarketWatch tab on the Thinkorswim platform. I'll be laying out an agenda for that in just a moment. Before we can get to that, let me first of all say hello to everybody chatting in there on YouTube through the live stream. Hello there, Dragon Rider, Tom, Mark, Eva, BJ, Life in the Fast Lane, David, AC, everybody else. Thanks for joining us week after week. We really appreciate your ongoing attendance, your contributions to these discussions. If you're here for the very first time, though, and I welcome you as well. If you need to catch up on the archives for the first five lessons, those are found at schwab.com/coaching. And if you are watching on the archives, the recording of this webcast, well, enjoy the presentation, but be aware that you're invited to join us in a live discussion. It does kick off promptly 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Monday afternoons. And as a final heads up, I am going to be keeping an eye on the chats, and I'm joined there by Ken Rose, great friend of mine. Ken's going to be answering any questions that I can't get to just during the natural flow of the presentation. So thanks for being there, Ken. But let's get right into this. Very first thing that Ken and I would like to do is give you an invitation. If you're not following us on X, please do. It's a great platform, great resource for those that attend our webcasts. Best place to find me and Ken in between these webcasts. So you can follow Ken at Ken Rose CS. My handle on X is at Cameron May CS. And if you reply to me or one of my posts on that platform, I try to reply right back to you. We also need to bear in mind that risk is real. These disclosures are important information. The information here is for general informational purposes only. It should not be considered an individualized recommendation or endorsement of any particular security, chart pattern, or investment strategy. Options carry a high level of risk and are not suitable for all investors. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as a sole means of investment research. And of course, investing involves risk, and that includes the loss of principal. All right, so here's the series overview. We do have 8 lessons planned for this series. That doesn't mean that the webcast series on Mondays ends when we get to lesson 8. Nope, we're just going to continue. It won't be quite as structured from there forward, but always exploring tools and functions on Thinkorswim. But we're getting into lesson 6, the MarketWatch tab, and that'll have us prepared for next week. The Analyze tab, that always, in my experience, tends to be a crowd pleaser, one that generates lots of questions. So I'm looking forward to each of those as we continue through our series. But for today, it is all about the MarketWatch tab. We're going to be exploring the platform navigation of that tab. We're going to be discussing the tools and resources found thereon. And when opportunity presents itself within the series, we also look for tools and resources to locate and evaluate example strategy candidates. Okay, but for all of this, we're using Thinkorswim, which is, and I am using the software version of Thinkorswim. Yes, there's mobile application. Yes, there's also web-based version of Thinkorswim. But just so if you're trying to follow along at home, you'll need to download the software. If you haven't done that already, that can be done from schwab.com. Just go to the trade tab and find it there, or you can go to thinkorswim.com. But this will give you access to what's called paper money, which is a practice platform basically, and you can trade and manage your real or live accounts. In both cases, though, you just log in using your schwab.com username and password. Okay, so let's go to the platform and let's have a look at the MarketWatch tab. So here we are on Thinkorswim, the software version again. And I'm going to go to the MarketWatch and just work through these sub tabs here. Okay, so we're going to click on MarketWatch, and we have 5 sub tabs. We're going to be talking through the quotes, alerts, visualize, and calendar. I'm not really going to get into the financing rates tab. You can explore that on your own. But basically, just as an overall view of the function of the MarketWatch, this is where one might go to keep an eye on current positions, to keep an eye on potential positions, and to see maybe what's on a calendar and what's moving in the markets. There's a lot of functionality here. So the very first thing we're going to explore is the quotes sub tab. And the way that I think about this one is this addresses a question that one might have about the watch lists in the left column. If you've ever used the watch list tool, it's a fabulous tool. Gives us quick reference to watch lists that we've created, watch lists that thinkorswim has created and published. But it is kind of a narrow area over here. We can keep tabs on, symbols, maybe the market capitalization. You can see how these columns can get kind of crowded. And this is where this quotes tab can really come in handy. It gives us a much bigger display field to keep an eye on our watch list and on public watch lists. Okay, so just think about it that way. So to navigate among those watch lists on the quotes tab, you can use this menu right here. Now, what you'll notice is that kind of cheated, got a little bit ahead of us, and I preloaded thinkorswim's S&P 500 components watch list. So we can access other watch lists by clicking on that heading, whatever the heading might be in your paper money at home. You can click on that heading and access other watch lists here. Now we can look at current positions. This example paper money account actually doesn't have any positions at the moment, but we can also access our personal watch lists. So for example, we created a watch list of dividend stocks in a recent webcast discussion. So I could open up that list of dividend stocks and then look at quotes, the description of the companies. I can see the quote trend, which is basically tick by tick, which way price is going. I can see the last price the stock traded for, the net change for the day, the bid size, the ask size, the volume, where we opened, the high, the low, the 52-week high, the 52-week low. You can see how much information can really be gathered about all these companies at a glance on this quotes tab. So I think that starts to show the potential power of the tool, but there are customizations. This is a tool that can be oriented to what's important to the individual investor at home very quickly. Okay. Oh, and by the way, I do see this is going to be one of those webcasts where there's an opportunity to give me feedback via a survey. So if you'll do me this favor, click that survey link right now. If you're in the live stream, click the link in the chat. It'll activate the survey. Then you can just fill it out when the webcast is over. But if you haven't ever filled out one of our surveys before, it's just 2 quick multiple choice questions and then a comments box and a suggestion box. And I always promise you this, if you take the time to fill that out, I'll take the time to read it. But that data, those comments are really helpful to your presenters. So thank you for doing that for us. But back to the platform here, as we look at the available columns on the quotes tab, you might be looking at those saying, well, some of those are good. Maybe some of those I don't really need. And I'm seeing maybe there are other metrics regarding these stocks that I'd like to be able to see at a glance that aren't currently displayed. So for example, maybe you don't really care what the size or the number of shares are on the bid or the ask at the moment. So the bid size and the ask size, maybe we don't need those. And maybe if we're looking for, let's say, dividend stocks, now it might be interesting to see the dividend yield as a column. So over to the far right of these columns, we can click on the little gear icon. And anytime we see the gear icon on thinkorswim, it means that there's something that's customizable here. So let's customize the columns. So this is the list, the current set of columns that we have: symbol, description, quote, trend, and so on. And over here is a massive list of potential metrics that could be added as a column display. So how about let's first of all remove the bid size. Let's just remove that one. Let's remove the ask size. That's freeing up some real estate in the columns. Didn't need to do that. I'm just trying to prevent this from getting crowded. And how about we look for dividend yield? Okay, there it is, dividend yield. Let's add that. And what that'll do by default is it's preparing to display that as the last column over here to the far right. How about if we move that up? Maybe we position it right up next to, maybe even right next to the description. So we have symbol, we have the description, which basically means who the company is, the name of the company, and then the dividend yield. So let's click OK. There we go. Now we can see symbol, name of the company, dividend yield. And of course, this is just an example. So many other fields that might be added as column headings here. And each of these are sortable. So if we want to go in alphabetical order, we can click on the symbol heading and go from A to Z or from Z to A. We can also click on one of the other column headings and go from in ascending order, smallest to largest, or descending order, largest to smallest, highest to lowest. There we go. So now I can see of these dividend stocks in this watch list that we created recently. Here are the companies organized now according to highest dividend yield to lowest. So I think I'll just let you explore that quotes tab on your own, as I will with so many of the functions here today. We can't show you everything, but I can give you a pretty good high-level introduction to these tools that are found on the MarketWatch tab. Next up, another pretty popular tool that we get a lot of questions about is the alerts tab. There are some times where we don't want to be glued to our screens monitoring the progress of positions or potential positions. And maybe we just want to get a notification if something important to us has happened regarding a stock that we might be monitoring, for example. Okay. So to sort of set the conceptual stage for this, let's suppose we've been keeping our eye on, how about we pick on Merck? And let's say that we notice, Merck's been coming down for a while. Maybe that a technical investor is looking for a convincing break of that trend. Okay. Maybe they want to see a push up above these recent highs. So just eyeballing it, what if we were to say, it'd be nice if I knew the moment that Merck got above 107, so maybe I could make an investing decision. Maybe I want to trade a stock or an option or design some other plan for Merck. Well, we can actually get a notification from thinkorswim that Merck has risen to that level by going to our MarketWatch tab, and let's go to MRK. And by clicking on the ask price, this is going to start to create not an order, but an alert. So we can just work our way down through this screen and set up an alert. So symbol is Merck, it's a stock. The alert is when the ask price is at, or let's say above 107. I just eyeballed that, obviously just using this for example purposes. And maybe we want to get notified that Merck has, according to our example outlook, a bullish breakout. Okay. And we can see a preview right here. There's an arrow indicating, all right, right about here is that 107 level. So we can see this is just a 1 day, 1 minute chart where that might appear on the chart. We can also tell the system how we'd like to be notified. If we happen to have thinkorswim up, it can make a noise, a bell. Okay. But we can also get an email sent or text messages sent at specific times. Or we can even get a push notification. That means that thinkorswim will cause your phone to give you a notice, even if your email isn't up, or if your text, if your thinkorswim isn't up at the moment. Anyway, but you'll notice these are grayed out for me. That's because this is just an example account. I don't have an email attached to this account. I don't have a phone number attached to this account. So how about we hit the pause button on that alert for just a moment. But to get notifications, we do have to set our thinkorswim settings to be ready for that. So I'm going to click on this little gear icon up here in the upper right for thinkorswim and go to the application settings. And this is where we can give our notification preferences. You can have emails sent to here. You can see how that's a blank field for me, and that's why it was an inert little checkbox on our alert, because I don't have an email set up. We can add a number to receive texts. Just make sure that those are filled in and apply those settings, and that will enable these alert functions that I'm talking about. So let's go back here, click on ask, get some repetition here. Okay, our ask or our value is at or above. And by the way, ask just means the current ask price. We could also choose mark, which means the market price of the stock. But at or above, let's say 107. And we're looking at potentially a bullish Merck breakout. Okay. So now we know what these notifications are. We can set them for specific times. We can also tell the system what we would like included in that notification. You know, maybe we just want to know the current market price or the bid price or the ask price or where the stock is closed. There's some other information here relating to options, but just know that we can tailor the information or the details that were provided at the moment the notification is made, okay? And then finally, there are notifications. There are additional customizations that we can make to the alert. We can have the alert, you know, don't send me alerts right now. Maybe start sending me alerts, you know, when I get back from vacation, or maybe cut them off if I don't get the breakout at the end of the week or whatever. So we can have them start at a specific time, end at a specific time, and we can get an alert to tell us, well, if the stock crossed up above 107 and then it went back down below 107, do we want it to tell us again that, you know, hey, Cameron, never mind? So it's a pretty potentially nifty feature here, okay? Now, yes, we can set up some pretty fancy alerts. One other thing that I wanted to show, and these alerts are also available for options. If we're on our option chain, we can actually right click on a, let's say, a strike price of interest and create an alert specific to that option. But, you know, something else I wanted to show you is that these alerts can be set up right from your charts. Okay. Now, I didn't submit the previous alert that we just constructed. Let's say instead, I just made this line. You saw me draw this line a few minutes ago. What if I want to just get an alert if price rises up through that line? Well, I can just right click on a line. And by the way, this function is only available in a live account. You're not going to see it on thinkorswim paper money. So if you're trying to do this on paper money, you're going to not see it in your menu. So that was just a heads up. But if we right click on a drawing, I can then say, you know what, am I in my paper money? Yeah. Let's create an alert. Where'd it go? Draw this again. Hold on a second. Right click here. Let's remove that drawing. Create a new drawing. Right click, create alert with drawing. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. And let's say we're looking for a bar price crossing above that trend line that we just drew. And we might define this as our MRK bullish breakout. Okay. But now you can see we have all the other functions. Notify, we can set times to have these expire. But let's go ahead and create this alert. Okay. Now you'll notice that puts a little icon on our chart that we have an alert. It's watching for a cross above this trend line, and that trend line is being extended out into the future. And if we go back to our MarketWatch tab, we can see, hey, there is that alert that we just created. There's our MRK bullish breakout alert. Now, if we decide we don't want that alert, we can cancel this alert at any time. Just click on this little stop icon. If you click on this one above, it cancels all of your alerts. So let's just cancel this one alert. There we go. So BJ, is that new? That pretty cool? All right, yeah, I wanted to show you that one. Now these final couple of tabs that we're gonna cover, I think pretty quick, fairly intuitive. Let's go through these fairly quickly, but the visualize tab is where an investor might come to get a gauge on what's moving today, which sectors are performing well, what's doing well in the watch list that I'm following, or maybe just in broader watch lists. So you'll notice by default, this is going to all watch lists out there. This is basically all the stocks. But what I'd like to do, how about if we organize these according to maybe, let's say, the S&P 500. And this is going to group. Now we're just looking at the 500 or so companies that comprise the S&P 500, and they're organized into their individual sectors with thicker borders drawn around the sector boxes and with a sector tab or tag in the middle. So I can see here are our information technology stocks in this area. Here's communication services here. Here's healthcare over here. And a couple of other things that I can see at a glance. I can see which stocks are in these sectors. and whether they're doing comparatively well or comparatively poorly today. So I think you're going to figure out the color scheme pretty quickly. Yeah, red means stocks are down, green stocks are up. The brighter the color, the more dramatic the move up or down. So for example, it looks like Broadcom having a pretty good move today, 9.66% up in that information technology sector. By contrast, if we go over to Apple, down 1.49%. Yeah, it's sort of a darker reddish color. Now, I think a lot of you are familiar with this heat map tool, this visualize tool, and you can navigate among other things, look at different public watch lists here. Scroll back up. Let's minimize that. Come back to our S&P 500 watch list. But another function that gets kind of overlooked at times is that we can switch this from heat map to, let's say, an index watch. I don't know if you've ever looked at this before. If we switch to the index watch, let's go back to our example S&P 500 watch list. And now we can see not the little familiar boxes, but now we're seeing histogram performance bars of the strongest moves among the S&P 500 component companies. So we can see, look right over here. We have CI, Cigna, up 16.74%. There is Broadcom again, up 9.9%, almost 10%. And who's having the worst go of it right now? It looks like Carnival Cruise Lines down 2.84%. You can see this here. And as you hover over something, you can see all of the open, high, low, close information down there. Okay. So that was one that it does get overlooked from time to time. Now, skipping over here, I did want to give a minute or two to the calendar, because this is one that carries so much information. It can be valuable, but we kind of need to know how to navigate it. So the calendar is intended to show us big events that are happening today. We can see dividends, or not just today, but on the calendar, the upcoming calendar, or even historical calendars. Dividends, earnings, conference calls, splits, economic events, and so on. Okay. Now, by default, you'll see that my calendar is set to show what's happening this week, and it's showing everything among all stocks. That's a lot. What if I just wanted to say to see stocks on a watch list that I'm following, or maybe the S&P 500 again, since we're kind of picking on that today? Well, we can, rather than entering a symbol, we can come right here and click on the little gear icon. So the symbol does allow us to look for individual stocks or other individual assets and look at those. But let's click on the little gear icon and set this to the S&P 500 again. And what this just did is it eliminated all those smaller companies that aren't S&P 500 companies, and it's just showing events for the S&P 500. And maybe I'm just interested in dividends, so I can just uncheck the box for show all, and maybe just look at dividends. So now I can see what dividends are being paid this week by S&P 500 companies, or which earnings are happening this week. And then, of course, we can advance from one week to the next by clicking the forward arrow, retreat back through the weeks by clicking the back arrow. We can change it from a weekly view to a daily view or a monthly view. I just know that it can tend to get cluttered if we have all of the events for all of our stocks on, like a monthly chart. Can be quite a bit to follow. And finally, of course, we can see things as a list rather than as a calendar. So they're just organized by date. So we can see, when, what companies are announcing earnings at which time, whether it's before or after market hours. Okay, so a great little tool there if you know how to navigate that calendar. But guys, we've accomplished what I set out to do today. This is what we do on Monday afternoons. I hope that you're going to put it in your calendar to join me each week to do this, but also be aware that just because we knock this out in 25 minutes doesn't mean that we have no contact with Coach Cameron in between these webcasts. Best place to contact me and to contact Ken in between the webcasts, to find us in between webcasts, is on X. So if you want to find Ken on X, it's at Ken Rose CS. You can find me at Cameron May CS. We'd love to have you there as a follower. You can see what we're thinking about market developments, about news of the day. even see what we're doing over the weekend. For example, I have a poll going on right now. I'd love your input. Poll for which of these factors do you consider before buying a stock? Company fundamentals or chart technicals, both or neither? That's kind of interesting how that's going. Already 55 people or so have answered that question. I'd like to get your input there. But everybody, also, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that. Trader Talks webcast from Schwab Coaching. You'll look for this icon or this avatar, I suppose, on YouTube. You'll know that you found the right channel, and just make sure that you've subscribed. It just allows you to follow your favorite webcast series and your favorite instructors much more efficiently, and you can find the archives grouped by playlist right here. All right. But guys, it is time for me to let you go. Thanks for giving me your time today. We wanted to explore the thinkorswim platform navigation as it regards to the MarketWatch tab. We've looked at the tools and resources found thereon, and when opportunities present themselves in future discussions in this webcast series. We'll also look to maybe evaluate example strategy candidates, locate and evaluate those. Okay, so I'm looking forward to future discussions with you. You're invited to join me again next Monday. I also have other webcasts Tuesday and Wednesday. You can join me then. But time to go fill out that survey. If you do that, that'd be fabulous. Thanks, Ken, for helping out with the chats. I'll see you in a future webcast. I'll also look for you on X, but hey, whenever I see you again, until that moment arrives, I want to wish you the very best of luck. Happy trading, happy investing. Bye-bye.